The time has come once again to speak as co-creators in Magic Do. I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffin-Stone, and we are your guides on your journey into the heart of the primordial.
Welcome to Season 9, Episode 2, Love is the Destroyer.
Woo! Love is the destroyer. I like that
Yeah.
title. But listener, I never know what he's going to say. Like
I
I
never know what
don't
I'm
know
going to
what
say.
I don't know what the titles are, so I'm as interested as you to hear them.
Yeah,
So,
I get them. Some days I'll get them ahead, but most of the time it's just right there at the time. But
mhm.
this one is very specific, and I do actually want people to sit there for a second, pause the episode if you have to, and really think about how you felt when that was said. All right, long enough fake pause as far as recording
Yeah,
goes.
yeah.
So, Love is the Destroyer. Can you guess what it is, Michaela?
Well, my mind immediately went to Kali, Shiva, all the
Mm,
gods who are terrifying to look at,
mm,
but when you actually look at what they do, they are destroyers. They
mm.
destroy in order to create. And what they
Right,
destroy is what is not useful, what is not good, what does not serve, what has outlived its purpose.
right,
It's basically like a snake shedding its skin. It's getting rid of the stuff that doesn't count in order for the new to be born.
right.
So I have a very different view of those
Mm.
terrifying figures,
Yeah. Well,
obviously.
Kali is the one who gave me the title.
Okay.
So,
Yep.
and it's the idea of like, when we think about destroying things, we always think like, okay, this is your opponent, and you need to have aggression and stuff like that. But that's not what's going to lead to destruction in this phase. It's love, because love is the antithetical to what's happening right now.
That makes sense.
So if
Yeah.
you want to destroy right now, if you want to be a destroyer, you love. Because everything right now that needs to be destroyed is destroyed by love.
And can I just clarify,
Sure.
love doesn't mean tolerating everything.
Right. Yes.
That's People do tend to get confused, particularly if they're not good at boundaries. They get very
Hmm.
confused between, well, love means I have to put up with everything, and, you know, if I don't, then it means not love. And that is wildly dysfunctional and
Right.
inaccurate. So
That's right.
if that's what comes up for the person listening, be aware that that is problematic. It's not true, and you have a little shadow work to do. Actually, you have a
Right.
lot. Right there. There's your portal. Go jump in.
Yes. Well, that was actually I cast the spell today, and then I did a kind of a follow-up reading after, more for myself than anything else. And shadow work was the was the order of the day on that one. But yes, because love is not about blindly obeying. Love is not about sacrificing yourself over and over and over again for something. It's having also the courage to stand up and speaking out.
Yeah, absolutely. And I have a Buddhist perspective on
Mhm.
that. Um, I really did learn lots doing the
Yeah.
studies that I did for some years,
Yeah.
so it pops up every now and then and then and
Mm.
then. And this one is if somebody is doing something to you, or you see them doing something to someone else, they are behaving in a way that is problematic, that is unpleasant, destructive, any of those things, unhelpful. Interpret that how you will. Then it is actually an act of love, duty to them and to
Mm.
yourself to stop them from doing what they're doing as far as possible. So if
Right.
it's someone who is abusing you, for example, if you can stop that, and, unless you're a small child, you probably can, then it's your duty to do so to them and to you. Because if you can stop them and you don't, then that person is building a whole load of negative karma.
Right.
The law of action and reaction, where it's going to come straight back at you, is building against their favor, and you're letting that happen,
Right.
which means that's not a good action on your part either. So now you're both building trouble.
Yes.
The best thing you can do is not let them do what they want to do, and however you need to stop that is how you stop that.
Right.
So sit and think about that one for a minute. We're going to give you some stuff to think about today, listeners, but it's important you don't let that person carry on doing bad behavior. That is an act of love, is to stop them.
Right. It's no longer love as an excuse to be passive.
No, I don't know that it ever was, but we may have
Right.
mistaken it.
Right. And that's, yes, that is the whole point of it. It's not sitting down, as you're saying, and letting people go and do things. Like, no, when it's your time to stand up, you stand up, even if you suffer for it. I'm not saying go and get beaten or anything like that, but it is time to express your courage and your love. If you say you love someone, then it is your time to be courageous with your love.
Yeah. And you have to stop them from doing harmful things.
Hmm.
It doesn't benefit them for you to let them do that. So, from a place of love, you're going to have to stop that action as
Yeah.
best you can. So, like I said, unless you're a small child, chances
Hmm.
are you have the ability to make a difference. And it's
Right.
important that you do. Think of when you've got an alcoholic that's hitting rock bottom, or they're awfully close to it, and you kind of wish they'd get there so that they can get their act together.
Hmm.
It's is it an act of love to buy them another bottle of alcohol so that they don't suffer withdrawal?
Right.
Or is it, if they're teetering on the brink of reaching that lowest point where they're now going to take action, if you have the ability to push them just a little bit so that they go further down
Hmm.
in order to come up,
Right.
think about how that feels. Like intuitively, why am I making it worse for them? That's a terrible thing to do. On the other hand, if you are sure, or as sure as one can be about another person's actions, if
Right.
you feel confident that that one thing is what they need in order to get them to a place where they will now seek help, who are you to not do it?
Right.
And that's there's a lot of questions. It's going to be very, you started with a counterintuitive thing there with love is
Right.
destruction, right? So I guess that's how we're going this episode. It's going to be a
Right.
little uh counterclockwise.
Right. Well, and think about when we did the episode, "You Ain't Shit,"
Huh?
right? We ended that episode on "You Got This."
Hmm.
But to open up to to say to your listeners, "You ain't shit," right? It's a very bold statement for someone when you want people to keep listening to
Right?
your podcast, right?
It doesn't sound encouraging, does it?
No, but
Welcome, dear listener. You ain't
yeah,
shit.
yeah. So that's kind of the idea. Like you might think what you're saying is counterintuitive. You might think that confronting someone or doing like making them uncomfortable, might seem not the thing to do. But love's all kinds of uncomfortable.
Yeah, it
Like,
really is. I mean, it's not love, it's a disguise when you
mhm,
think suffering is involved,
right,
because love doesn't require suffering. It requires
right,
bold choices. It
hmm,
requires it requires you to show up
yes,
and bring that courage with you. But it's not suffering. If you're sitting there suffering, if you're
hmm,
waking up in suffering and you go to bed and you're still suffering,
right,
get your head out of your ass and do something about it, because that is not love. Like
right,
that is not, that's martyrdom, which is, if you've listened to the podcast for any
yeah,
length of time, you'll know how we both feel about that.
yeah,
And it
yes,
ain't positive, you
right,
know. Don't bring that vibe around here, thank you. Got no time for it.
yeah. So yeah, like it does continue from "You Ain't Shit" because if you say you love someone and you're not doing stuff, well, are you? Are you in love? You ain't shit. Like, You're not doing the thing you say you're going to do.
Right. And another part that leaps to
Mm,
mind is allowing that person to assume things that you know are incorrect.
right.
It could be that they're assuming something about the relationship that you're in with them that is incorrect, and you know
Mm,
it, and you know that that's what their perspective is, if you will. Um, is that fair to leave them with that? If you need to change that for good or for ill, like whatever it is, it doesn't matter. It's just the inaccuracy. Is it kind of you to leave it there?
right.
Is it fair? Is it an act of love? And if it isn't, well, I'm going to recommend
Mm,
that you either take a really good look to see what are you actually in right now? What is the vibe? And if you really think that love is there, then bring your courage and make the right actions.
right. It's the, one of our favorite stories, The Emperor's New Clothes, right?
Right?
If I'm not
Hmm.
mistaken, right, it was a young child who said, "Hey, how come the Emperor's not wearing any clothes?" Right? Well, the
Yep.
rest of them didn't want to speak. So yeah, be that child, basically.
Well, some of that, though, that's an
Yeah.
interesting story because a whole lot of that was people were afraid to say something.
Right.
But by being afraid to say something, they were kind of temporarily saving their own asses, just like the
Yes.
current Senate and Congress are,
Yeah.
right? They temporarily save their own ass, but they look stupid, and your integrity is shattered behaving like that. And eventually, the person that you're shielding, if you will, by not coming true to them and
Mm,
bringing your courage, um, they're going to know in the end,
mm,
right? It's going to become clear, and then how do they see you? Whatever you thought that relationship was you had with them, be it friend,
mm-hmm.
colleague, or whatever, you don't got that now. You would completely shatter it. It can be temporarily comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
but long term, no. And then think, how much do you value your own honesty to yourself? Like, if you promise things for yourself, do you do them? Do you follow through? Are you that kind of
Mm.
person? And if you're not, well, that's probably the first place to start, right? If you don't
Yeah,
follow through on the promises you make to yourself, there's a fundamental issue. And how are you going to deal with other people?
that's right. The love we're talking about can also be self-love. And then the self-love destroys the things that are keeping you from doing what you need to do, or keeping you from growing the way you want to grow, or achieving what you want to achieve.
A lack of self-love would do that.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
because if you're not willing to show up for yourself, then who do you show up for?
yeah, I think I said this before a couple episodes ago, but I had jokingly said, you know, I know myself, I do all that stuff, but love myself, that's someone else's job, which of course is totally full of shit, but that's why I
Uh-huh.
joked about it. But it was like, I gotta love myself too. What the hell is that bullshit?
And it's interesting. A lot of
Yeah.
people have a problem with that because
Yeah.
they were taught as kids to put others first.
Right.
And when you put others first, you can kind of grow up into the adult that has a lack of connection to themselves. And if you lack a connection to yourself, how are you going to connect to any deity? How are you
Right.
going to connect to any magical practice that you want to do? Like it's empty words, it's empty invocations, and it's transactional at best. And I was about to use stronger words than this,
Mm.
but I won't. Um, that to the best of my understanding, deities do not appreciate transactional approaches. This is not going to get you into a good space because
Right.
you know what? They're a lot bigger, older, wiser, more encompassing, and basically significant than any of us are. So we're a fraction of the whole,
Right.
right? We're all a part of the whole. They're the whole. So. Don't bring the transactional stuff. And if you don't
Right.
have a good foundation of self-love and a good relationship with yourself, then you're probably not going to bring your best to them. In which case, start there, do some
Mm,
work on that,
right.
and seriously do the work. One of
Yeah.
the toughest things I've come across to do is mirror work.
Mm.
Really look at yourself in the mirror. Don't look away. Don't look sideways, left and right. Don't kind of stare at the one feature that you think is reasonable and it'll do. No, no, no. Really, really look at yourself and then talk to yourself. What do you want to say? And as a recommendation, don't say anything to that adult looking back at you that you wouldn't tell 5-year-old child,
Mm. It's a good advice.
right? Like if you have a photo of yourself when you were a little kid, have the photo with you in the room where the mirror is. And anytime you want to start talking and tearing yourself down or saying negative things, look at that photo of the child, which is you. Would you say it to that child? And I'm really counting on the answer being no, right? Because if you would, then you have got
Yeah.
some serious freaking issues and you need therapy right now, amongst other assistance, because that is, if you would talk like that to a 5-year-old, if you would tear yourself down and say negative things, then you're one mean son of a gun and you need to go fix that.
Yeah. Well, that's what
So,
I was going to say too, right? And if you can do it, well, you got a whole lot more work to do than just a mirror. But
yep. Yeah, but the whole point to that exercise is it's so revealing,
hmm
right? What stories come up when you look in the mirror? What do you see? Oh, I'm too old, I'm too fat, my nose is the wrong shape, my eyes are the wrong color. I don't like this bit, I don't like that bit. You know, why? Where did those stories come from? This is work to do on repeat. And
yeah.
chances are there will be tears involved. And that's good because the tears belong to the child who
hmm
didn't get a look in, the child who, held it all in because they had to. So we're leaping straight into some pretty tough work right there. That make sure you've got space where nobody else is hanging around because that will impinge on what you can do.
I don't know why my mind went there, but it made me think about old contests you used to see on TV and on the radio. And I was going to say, and so listeners, dab your tears, put it in an envelope, send it to Michaela at PO Box.
Well,
Uh,
tears, the thing about tears is they are different. There's
mm,
the composition, the chemical composition of tears
mhm.
are different depending on why they are shed. And
I
it,
can
it
see that.
actually is an emotional release
hmm
of stress hormones and what have you if you cry for an emotional reason. So they're actually important. And a lot of people learn not to cry, which is so restricting because men typically have this problem because you're raised boys don't cry. Oh,
Not a problem in
Christ.
my family.
Well, it's a horrible thing to do to a kid. It's an
Uh,
appalling thing to do to a kid. But also male and female
mm,
children, they're not allowed to be angry, for example, because that's seen as defiance.
right.
You can't have a full range of emotions as a kid safely around most adults because the
Right.
adults can't handle it. They weren't taught how to handle it. So they get uncomfortable with yours. And
Yeah.
and then as a kid, you have a problem with that. So by the time you grow up, chances are there's a whole bunch of people listening to this that say, well, I never cry. No, I don't cry. Maybe even I can't cry. And that's okay. Get you to a mirror.
Yeah.
And go check that thing out. Make it a daily practice. And if you want to start with like 1 minute, set a
Mm.
timer, 1 minute. You don't have to say anything. You just don't take your eyes off the mirror. Day two, maybe another minute, or maybe a minute and a half. It's up to the individual to sort out the increments of how long you can handle it, but keep moving forward and keep doing that work,
Yep. It's like not as intense, but it's like listening to your voice for the first time when you record it.
right? And so many, no, I think everybody actually
Yeah.
probably freaks the first time they hear it. They're just like, oh my God, it sounds so horrible. Um, but
Yeah.
it's interesting because you're getting something unfiltered. Your own ears hear you differently to how
Yep.
somebody else hears you. And when you hear the playback, it's like, oh,
Hmm.
that's that's not what I hear.
Yeah.
How
It
many
doesn't
people
phase
say
me
I
now,
don't,
but yeah. At
how
first
many
I was
people
like,
will say I don't have an accent, everybody else does.
yeah.
I mean, I love to say that, but I say it as a joke.
Mm.
And I keep a straight face if I can do it too. Like, I'll look very innocent and say, what are you talking about? I don't have an accent.
Yeah. I speak English. What the hell are you doing?
Yeah, but I
Yeah.
don't have an accent. Foreign? Me? Foreign? I mean, truth to tell, I'm foreign in any country I go to. Because, even if I go back to the UK, they're like, where are you from? If I go to Australia, where are you from? Any of the places that I might have called home are going to question where I'm from. So, yeah, I have an accent, but I pretend I don't,
Yeah.
just for shits and giggles.
Yeah. So we've I was gonna say we've burdened our listeners with a lot in the what, half an hour since we've been talking, been recording.
Well, keep hitting pause and
Mm.
consider where you want to begin. But the mirror work is something I would recommend for everybody to try out. See where you are. Like, if you
Yeah.
can take more than 1 minute on day one, go for it. If you
Yeah.
find 1 minute to be deeply distressing, then where? Like, where in your body does that show up? Why? What's the story? What, whose version of you are you thinking of? And, understand that it's perfectly okay for you to destroy other people's versions of you
Yes.
because they're not true. They're illusions. The
That's
only
right.
person that has any inkling of who you are is you. Everybody else just sees what they think they're looking at.
That's true.
And I had a conversation with a guy the other day who he said he's from the same place as
Mm.
Melania Trump,
Okay.
and he wasn't sure if I thought that was a good thing or not. And I offered him my commiserations and condolences. So I think he understood that that was not something I thought was necessarily an object of pride.
Right.
But he was talking about divorce and saying that, the ex-spouse was had had three relationships in the space of 10 years, and he thought this was too much and it wasn't good for his kids, etc., etc. And then the question came out, how do I make her behave
Mm.
differently? And the concept, first of all, it's very
Yeah.
masculine. Secondly, it's so inaccurate and fucking arrogant that I had to answer the question though. And in case somebody's listening that wonders, you cannot make anybody do anything. That's inaccurate. You might if you had a gun pointed at their head, but are they actually doing the thing you want them to do? Like, you
Right.
can't make somebody be who they aren't.
Right.
So having a person behave differently in relationships, you're wanting them to be somebody they're not. You want them to be your version of how you think they should be.
Yes.
And that is precisely why they are divorced,
Yeah.
because that person saw a version that he thought was accurate and desirable. And when the person he was seeing behind that facade could not be how he expected them to be, things went south. Of course he did. That's why an awful lot of divorces happen, is because what you thought you were looking at isn't what you were looking at. And
Yeah.
that's not the other person's fault. It's the lens that you bring, your life experience, and your desires for what that person's going to bring to you, and even your fears, all of those are used to interpret the behavior you're seeing. So, for
Right.
example, somebody who's really emotionally unavailable, you may look at their behavior and interpret it as strong and silent. Oh yeah, they're so deep and strong silent type. Like this
Mm,
person's protective and this person's, and you put a whole plethora of, descriptions onto this person's behavior where actually they're not engaging and they're emotionally unavailable.
right.
They didn't pretend to be other than, it's
Yeah.
what you saw. So I hope that clarifies a little bit of where sometimes people are looking at you and they'll have a version of you that's got absolutely nothing to do with you, and it's not your responsibility that they have that version. If you
Yeah.
know they have that version, you can disabuse them of it. Like I recommend that because it's nonsense. This is where you hear people say things like, "Well, that's not like you," or "That person did that thing. No way, that's not like them." Yes, it is, or they wouldn't have done it. It's not like the version you thought of them.
Yes.
That is a whole other ball game. So that mirror, that mirror takes away all of that stuff, that story that you may have been told, you may have heard it. Oh, you're this way, you're that way. You should be this, you should do that. I'm sorry, who are you talking to?
Yeah.
Person behind me, obviously, because you're not describing me, right? And
Yeah.
people will do that. And the more tied to their version of you they are, the harder they will push for it. You
Yeah.
can't live with that. It's absolutely obnoxious. You cannot live with having somebody else's version of you slapped over you. And
No.
when they discover they're wrong, then they get mad at you and blame you for not being who they thought you were.
Been
Well,
there, seen there, done that.
right? We all have. That's the thing. Everybody's experienced this at some point.
Hmm.
It's humans do it to each other all the time. The trick is to learn that that's what's going on and to
Yeah.
catch it and
Right.
to check in. I think
Yeah.
I'm seeing it. I think this about you. Am I right? Like, oh, and a thing that my mom always told
Mm.
me, and I really should have listened earlier, was when somebody tells you who they are, believe them
Yeah.
because they know,
Hmm.
right? So pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Don't try and get the savior thing going on where, no, I can fix them, I can help. It's not your job. It's not your
Yeah.
possibility. It's not your task. It's not your place. It's not in the range of your abilities to fix someone or save someone. You can't do that. It's not yours.
Yeah. Because it's for that person to figure out for themselves. At the best
Well,
you
you
can
can
do,
inspire.
I was going to say, the best you can do is inspire someone.
You can inspire. You can encourage if you feel like putting
Hmm.
the energy in there, because again, encouragement may or may not do anything.
Right.
But if you inspire them, if they recognize something that makes that person reach up, reach in a way, then great, cool. But you can't fix anybody.
Right.
Disney has a lot to answer for.
Yeah. Yeah. Actually, you bring that up. I was actually talking with Patrick, and I was saying
Hi, Patrick.
yeah, one of the things I have problem with modern media is that everyone is trying to use a franchise and IP and trying to, and then they put the writers in, and it's like, and you get the writers end up writing a story, and it makes no sense to the IP they're in, right? And I was like talking about, I'm like, I don't know why they just don't let them write their own stories. It's like because that's where they're gonna, because there's some really good stories, but they don't make sense for the IP.
Right.
I was bringing up the new Wonder Man TV series. It's like I enjoyed it. It was great. It was awesome, but it had nothing to do with Wonder Man. That was just a name tacked onto the show. and they did a couple of scenes that were germane to the character, and that's it. But it was
Mhm.
otherwise entertaining. I liked it. I watched it through, even though I knew I wasn't going to get a Wonder Man story.
Right. And there's your clarity,
Yeah,
right? Even
and
though
even
somebody's telling you
right,
this is what you're getting, you can see that you're not.
yeah,
And then, you can make a decision. Well, I'm not getting what they told me I'm getting,
mhm,
but is it okay?
yeah,
And it still can be. I mean,
right,
the thing is, it's just a question of are you aware enough to be okay with that? And if you are, then it's totally cool.
yeah,
And that's another thing that people will often do is once they realize that things aren't what they thought they were, or they've been sold something that's not accurate, they think then, oh, I have to go away from this. I gotta,
mm,
baby with the bathwater kind of deal.
yeah,
I gotta head away from this. Well, not necessarily. Just notice, acknowledge, and then make a decision. Like, okay, this person cannot be trusted to tell me accurately,
right.
and this thing's still cool, so I'll hang around, but I have this information about the source.
Well, that's the thing, right? Because being closed off like that, because like I said, I've seen it constantly in modern media. It's like, but at first, it would bug me. Like I wanted to see this. You advertise this product to me. I want to see this product. But what I
Mhm.
started noticing when I'm watching, I'm like, there's still really good writing. Like it's not perfect, but there's good writing. And if they were allowed to do the story they actually wanted to do with characters they wanted to make, this would be good. So
Right.
instead of like saying all these writers, they're no good, they ain't shit, kind of a thing. It's like no, these are actually really good writers. They can craft a good moment. Some of it doesn't make sense to me because they have to fault right, and you always have the showrunner and you have the people producing it putting the money in, right, say their opinion. But it's like these are otherwise good shows. They're just not suited for what they're supposed to be.
And that what you brought up just then is applicable in so many places because when other people try and control you,
Mm,
then that is problematic
right,
because they aren't you and they're trying to get you to do something that you're not aligned with.
right,
And it's not going to go well. It's not going to go as well as it could. So if those writers did a good job, just imagine if they were allowed to do their own thing.
right,
That'd have been epic, right? So
yeah,
that control thing of trying to control someone else and make them do it your way, that is where all the problems come in. And, we were just
mm,
describing that with when you're looking at somebody and you think these things about them and
right,
that's not true, it's your lens. It's the same kind of issue. It's a control
yes,
thing. If you try and make them be who you thought they were and who you think they should
right,
be, right?
right,
Like, no, you don't get to do that. And anybody that allows you is only allowing you for temporarily because they can't keep it up forever. And they're coming from a place of probable abuse and certainly
mm,
underdevelopment of a sense of self.
right,
So you're taking advantage of somebody who does not have all of their awareness together. That we're going right back to the unkindness then and the problems with karma, right? So
yeah,
don't be treading on people. And when it
yeah,
comes to magical practice, again, it's another lens with which to look at it. Like, what are you bringing? What are you bringing to the table? What do you think you're looking at?
right.
And are you trying to work with only one facet of that deity? Because they all have so many.
Well, yes, it's funny, right?
You get all of it. You don't get the one you want to play with. You get all of it.
Right. The one thing I like about this podcast, and I know in my magical practice, it's the humanizing of these spirits.
Well, it helps us to
Not
relate.
the anthropomorphization of them, but the humanity of them. But I use humanity for bigger than just, biological human beings.
Hmm. But I mean, it's how we relate,
Yeah,
right? So you got to use the tools you have,
right.
but to think of the deity that draws you in. So, for
Mm,
example, if you're drawn to Lilith, which that's mine, one of mine anyway,
hmm,
then you got to be aware there's all sorts of sides. Lilith
yeah.
isn't the ever patient, um, you know, loving mama that's gonna feed you milk and honey. No, she's gonna slap you up the head pretty damn hard if you need it. kick you out of the place and, do all kinds of things because all kinds of things are needed. The love is destruction.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's all part of the same continuum, right? And you have to let go of one thing in order to become another.
Right.
If the snake doesn't shed its skin, it dies.
Yep.
And
And
if you
that's
don't shed the ego that you've outlived, then you end up um, a petulant brat in adult bodies that, can't do anything really functional. Gosh, why am I thinking of the president right now? But it's
yeah.
that's exactly where you end up. There's no growth.
Right.
Where's the growth? Stopped at the age of about 7, I would say.
Right.
Maybe
Well,
12
yeah.
tops.
Well, I was going to say, like, just for my own practice alone, I had to do that recently. Shed
Yeah.
old egos and stuff like that, like, because I couldn't go forward in my practice without doing it.
And that's the thing. Ego death is, in my viewpoint, ego death is to be welcomed because it means you're progressing, it means you're
Yeah.
growing, and you no longer need to be who you were or how you
Yeah.
were, which again makes it difficult for other people if they're attached to the version of you that they
Mm-hmm.
expect to see. But what if that's not you now? I had this roommate years ago when I was in London, nursing student, and there was a bunch of nursing students. There was a bunch of
Right.
musicians living downstairs. It was hilarious. But anyway, this one girl, she'd had some trauma, and as often happens with people with trauma, she turned to the church because it's
Right.
a very convenient crutch, and she felt supported by them. Problem from my perspective that comes in is she swallowed what they were selling, hook, line,
Mm.
and sinker. She ended up marrying a guy from the church, and
Mm.
frankly, he did not have good vibes. But she married this dude anyway, and she ended up with 5 daughters with him. And I don't know where they are today. I'm not sure I want to know because my concern was always if she wakes up one day and realizes that this is a whole load of twaddle, she has got big problems because her entire life has been based on it.
Right.
She has crafted like those kids will be raised in that church. She's married a guy because he's in that church. Everything she's doing is based on religious decisions.
Right.
Ooh, that to me is scary as anything because if you wake up one day and realize, if those veils fall away and you see the illusion
Mm.
it is, what then are you going to do with what you've got?
Right. And you know what?
Wow, terrifying. In my opinion, that is terrifying.
Yes. And that's a point that the spirits running the episode wanted people to really remember because it's going to happen. You're living in a period where this is going to happen. So, you know what? Work on yourself because the illusions are going to shatter and you're going to be stuck with nothing and you're going to be scrambling.
It's happening all the time. I mean,
Yeah.
with the Epstein files,
Yeah.
daily somebody else is showing up, and you're like, wait, they're in there too?
Hmm.
How? Why?
Yep.
And if it made sense, I mean, I don't even know where to start with that, but if it made sense to you that they would be in there, then that alone is kind of problematic, right?
Yeah.
But if you look at church leaders all over the place, especially in the US, because that's what I know about right
Yeah.
now, so many of them have been had up for child pornography and for sexual abuse. So many of them abusing the positions of power because the gullible will follow the flock.
Right.
They'll follow what they're being told. I can't even call it teachings because it's not. It's just straight up
No.
manipulation.
Yeah.
And then they're making decisions based on that. Wow. Wow.
Yep.
And now I'm going to take a wild guess and say the listener to this podcast is not one of those people because if you are, give it up. This is not this is not the podcast for you because you're too far away from what we're doing to understand what we're saying. So I don't think that person would be listening, honestly. It's
Yeah.
just,
The person from that environment who's listening to us right now is up for the challenge because they're obviously interested in something. We've hooked something in them.
yeah. I mean, hey, if you fit that bill, please let us know because I'd be fascinated to get a glimpse of what you think you're going to do with magical practice. And I don't mean that as snarky as it may have sounded. I mean, literally, I want to know what do you think you're going to do with it? How's it going to work? What's the game plan?
Well, and that's a great question because although I don't know how interwoven to this episode it is, right? It comes up every once in a while for me, like, what's the purpose of doing magic? I,
Okay.
too, something I had never really considered, but I might have mentioned this on the episode before, right? All the work we've been doing for since the beginning of 2025 has been releasing resources for this time period. We've been, opening gates, downloads bringing in spirits, casting spells that, permit communication better and all that kind of stuff. And these are all things that happen every time there's a major age, which something never dawned on me. I just figured everything was already, kind of just in like a machine, just, okay, we get to here, okay, it just automatically releases like on a timer. It's like, no, people have to ask for it. People have to release it. People have to want it. Otherwise, it goes still sealed, and then the next age, you just keep going through your age without those resources.
Mm, yeah. Well, the question, what is the purpose?
Yeah,
I think the answer is going to be very individual.
right.
And so much of it depends on, well, what are you bringing? What are you looking for? How far are you prepared to go? And are you in the safe zone? Oof.
Mm.
Oh, that just felt really wackadoodle.
Mm.
Um, I literally had a sort of
Yeah.
sensation run up down my spine that was one of yuck. But
If you
if
could
you're
have
in
seen it,
this
listeners, you wouldn't have missed it.
right, but if you're in the safe zone, then chances are, you buy your food at Whole Foods, you light some candles, and float around in some kind of outfit that makes you feel part of the vibe or whatever. But you're not actually doing anything. That's the thing is it's aesthetic. It's purely visual. It's not substantial because substantial is fearful. Like it's a place of, but if I do that, what happens then? And what if I don't like it, right? Like that kind of question that a little kid might ask, but what if I don't like it?
Yeah,
And it's fair enough. I mean, I think everybody gets at that stage at some point, some younger than others, some sooner than others, and some stay there for a while longer. But it's just if you have to stay safe, then you're not allowing yourself the experience. You're not allowing yourself to contact magic.
right. Well, that's the
You're
thing.
not allowing it to contact you.
Yes, because you hit on something. So remember, so Michaela and I were exchanging texts this morning, and I said that the spiritual world is like shaking right now.
Right.
Like it wants to do something, and what it wants to, what it really, really wants to do. Once again, listeners, open, listen with your heart open. Don't listen from the position of you're being admonished. Don't listen from the position of this another person who hates me. This is love. This comes from love. Get your shit together. No more of this bullshit. I went to Whole Foods and I have X number of tattoos and stuff like that, and that makes me richer than everyone else. It's like, no, that's not what's happening. That's not the magic. That's not the flow. That's not it. Those are aesthetic things, choices you make for yourself, and that's fine. Whatever, that's you. But know that your magical practice is not going to grow very far if that's the limit of it, or the
Precisely. I mean,
entirety of it.
if you want to do all of those things,
Yeah,
100%, like go for it. Absolutely. I've had tattoos for a long time now.
right,
Um, and I like them, and I'm contemplating another one. I
right.
just, I just gotta, get the money together to go do it. But and that's not for anybody else's
Right.
amusement or interest. In fact,
Mm-hmm.
I tend to be tattooed where people don't get to see it unless
Mm.
I wish to show it to them.
Right.
So, it's not an aesthetic thing, but even if it was, or not for public consumption, but even if it was, it's okay. You can do that totally. But if that's it, if that's as far as you go, um, well, you're not really there yet. You're missing a lot. It's like going to watch a football game and then staying out in the stadium with the tailgate.
Right.
You didn't get there. You're not in
Right.
the arena. You're outside listening, or
Yeah.
you're watching the people going in, but you're not going yourself.
Right.
And that's a pity because this is the perfect time to do that, to go in, to get involved, and to really investigate like who comes to you, who
Mhm.
who speaks to you, what draws you in. Um, Something I want to bring up because we're recording on Easter weekend.
Right.
I've been sending out some wildly inappropriate memes today because that's my fun place to be.
Mm.
But what occurs to me is long before Judeo-Christianity
Mhm.
occurred, long before any of the Abrahamic
Right.
religions became a thing, long before there, in Sumeria, there was Inanna.
Mm.
And Inanna was a goddess who descended to the underworld, gave up her 7 layers of magical protection, one through each gate,
Right.
and was then forfeit her life. She was struck down and hung on a hook in the underworld for 3 days before she was brought back to the earth, resurrected.
Mm.
There's a whole story around this, and obviously, but the sort of outline that I want to give you is Inanna was a goddess. She went to the underworld. She was essentially sacrificed, if you will, hung on a hook for 3 days, Easter,
Mhm.
3 days,
Mm.
before her faithful servant came and kind of got her out, and she was back to life again. She was reincarnated, if you will, resurrected, however you want to put it, resurrected.
Right.
And powerful then for the underworld and the above world.
Right.
Thousands of years later, at least 1,000 years later, you then have this other individual that did the whole sacrifice, not hung on a hook,
Mm.
but hung on a cross. Three
Right.
days later, resurrected. Huh.
Between
It
that, you have
sounds,
Osiris too,
it sounds like, yes. And who put Osiris back together?
his mother.
So, the women, the goddesses, who are the
Mm.
powerful ones who did these things, have been pushed aside, if you will,
Yeah.
in favor of the patriarchal version, which is the Abrahamic
Mm.
religions. Well, no, that's not what we're doing now. Go back to Inanna and look at her
Mm.
stories. Yeah, and you can find some books on her. I've been reading them. It's very cool,
Yeah.
very
Well, I
cool.
was going to say, right, Yunan is also known. I've always pronounced it Ishtar, but apparently it's pronounced Easter. So even the name of the holiday comes from Inanna.
Right. There's there's so much that we just take as being this relatively recent. I mean, Abrahamic religions are
Yeah.
relatively recent, and we are told that's it. Like Socrates taught Plato,
Mm.
Plato taught
Right.
whoever
I
was
don't have the
next. I
whole
can't remember
list.
now.
Yeah.
But who taught Socrates? A woman did.
Mm.
But she's been
Yeah.
largely erased from
Right.
history. I posted about that the other day.
Yeah.
She's been largely erased from history. Why? Because she wasn't male.
Mm.
And so, you know, look for those goddesses. Look further
Mm.
back when women were actually in their
Mm.
rightful place. Who there calls to you? Who is interesting?
Right.
There could be there's those I've never heard of yet. I haven't found them yet.
Right.
There's plenty out there. And you'll
Yeah.
know when one lands for you. And this is not only women can find goddesses. No,
Hmm.
not at all.
No.
In fact, Danielle and I have both joined a container that's
Yeah.
run by a guy,
Yeah.
and it's all about Lilith and other things, but mostly Lilith. So, you don't have to be female, but you got
Mhm.
to acknowledge the place of the woman,
Yeah.
which is not in the goddamn kitchen, may I say. So, yes.
Well, kitchens are also, historically speaking, a recent invention. So,
Yeah, and if you want to be in the kitchen with your cauldron creating
Hmm.
potions and stuff, absolutely. Point is, nobody tells you to be there.
Yeah,
That's the thing. And it's not a limit, it's a possibility.
right.
So magic is such a an open space. There's so many things you can do. And, one of the tricks, if you want to call it a trick, one of the entries is to find where's your happy space? What do you like? Do you like being in nature? If you do, is it water? Is it forest? Um, what do you like?
You know what? I want to say fairly for the record, the kitchen is getting a bad rep here.
Who's getting a
Me
bad
and my
rep?
sibling, me and my siblings, okay, choose places to live and houses to buy based on kitchen space
Aha!
because of how important the kitchen is and how central it is.
And don't get me wrong, the
Yeah,
kitchen is important. It's not a prison.
right,
It's not a place where you tell a certain category of person that that's the only place they can be,
right.
right? So I don't have a problem with kitchens.
Mm.
No, we need them. Like if you don't have a kitchen, you got a bit of a problem. I actually lived in a place once with no kitchen. It was a real pain in the ass because everything I ate had to be elsewhere.
And actually, to add to it, my brother's kitchen dominates the upper floor of his house. Like there's a
How
main floor,
cool.
there's a kind of walkout basement.
Uh-huh.
Oh, he loves to cook. If he could have made a living at cooking, here's what he would have done. And his kitchen pretty much takes up like the dining area is small, and then there's like a seating area, but that place is dominated by the kitchen. He's got the two door ovens there, things on the wall.
Ooh,
Oh, he's
fun.
got it set up like he's
No, no,
yeah,
there's nothing wrong
yeah,
with the kitchen. Like I said, the problem is telling somebody
right,
that's the only place they can be.
yeah. I just
It's
want to
like,
take a moment to defend the kitchen. That's all.
oh yeah, no, kitchen's not under attack. It's the limitation that's under attack, right? If you're told that's the only thing that you can do,
Right.
then that might not be the only thing you want to do. So, no, got no problem with
Mm.
kitchens. Kitchens are
Yeah.
great. You get food from them. It's a really
Yeah.
good thing. Um, yeah, it's what we do with them to make them less appealing, if you will.
Yes.
So,
You're
yeah.
right. But see, also, we also have usually open concept kitchens. It's this, the dining room isn't separated from the kitchen. The kitchen is part of the flow of the food and the entertaining and the hanging out too. So
Yeah, I guess it
you're never
depends on,
separated from everything that's going on. You're actually in the seat of power at that point.
it depends on
Yeah.
where you live because the house
Yeah.
I'm in was built in 1904 and the
Mm.
kitchen is separate.
Yeah.
It is not, I mean, you come from the backyard into the
Mm.
kitchen. So it's got a
Yeah.
lot of through flow, especially with six dogs in the house.
Right.
There's a lot going on, but it is a room unto itself. And then there's a hallway between the dining room and the kitchen
Yeah.
that is completely separate.
Right. Like, yeah, I grew up in a World War II house. Well, initially it got remodeled, but yeah, so you'd come in, there's the porch where you come in, and then yeah, then there's the kitchen, and then you go into the rest of the house.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's an interesting reflection of
Mm.
how people prioritized things
Mhm.
and how they viewed the connection with other places, right?
Yeah.
If the kitchen is separate and distinctly so, then obviously whoever's in there is meant to be distinctly separate.
Well, and that's what I was going to say, actually. I kind of judge houses by where the kitchen is located and where it sits and if it's isolated or not.
Right. Well, this isn't isolated.
Yeah.
It's just not connected in the way that you describe. It's not no
Yeah.
open concept. Me, I
Yeah.
look at houses for turrets and spiral
Mm.
staircases,
Right.
and I have one with both. So priorities depends on what you're
Yeah.
looking for.
Yes.
But that's
Anyway,
definitely a
all that just to
sidetrack.
say, anyway, yeah.
That's
But
definitely a sidetrack.
yeah, it amused me as well. So
Uh-huh. And
I
we're
was also
both
amused by
laughing
the
over
idea.
that one.
Yeah. But no, it's the yeah. So the love that destroys is about taking away the boundaries that are there to harm you or that are harming you. Whether they were intended to harm you or not is a different point. But the fact is, the love destroys those boundaries. And that's what's needed right now. We got all kinds of boundaries that are not made with the best intentions, and they got to go.
Yeah, and the word boundary is kind of
Mm.
interesting because typically I associate boundary with something that you apply for yourself that
Right,
others may not cross and or that you won't cross,
right.
right? No, I'm not going to do that. I'll
Hmm.
do this, but I won't do that. And so it's clarity. But when others impose them willy-nilly, I view them more as barricades, right? It's more like the barbed wire fence that it's a force rather than a clarity.
Right,
And those things, like you got to get rid of that barbed wire. That's not
right.
okay. Nothing that gets caught in it does well.
Yeah,
So, there's clarity on what you're looking at is so important, I
yeah.
think. And many people talk to, clients I work with, one of the places we often start is boundaries because they don't
Mm.
know how to set a boundary, what constitutes a boundary, or how to maintain one. And
Yeah,
it's important to have healthy boundaries and to know what that looks like,
yeah.
right? So you know where you end and another person begins.
Yes.
And so do they, right?
Mhm.
Like
Right.
that's the key. So
Yeah.
do they. Um, Yeah, but those barricades, those barbed wire rolls that I can
Mm.
see in my vision right now, those aren't good.
Right,
Those have to go. That's not imposed for anything good.
right. And so magically, it goes the same way.
Yeah,
You have limits put on you, you know, to go back to the Whole Foods, white girl with the nose ring kind of a thing. An aesthetic is opposed upon you, and that aesthetic limits your capacity because you think you have to do those things.
but also if you do that and you think that that's all you can do, that's another way of using the aesthetic as a limitation.
Right.
Like you totally go for it. You know what? You want to wear a pointy hat? Knock
Hmm.
yourself out. Go for it. The big thing is don't expect others to do the same thing.
Right.
You know, I often find that when people see me, what
Hmm.
they assume is hilarious
Mm.
and typically wildly inaccurate. Like they haven't understood who they're talking to or what's going on here at all. And if they hang around long enough, they get kind of surprised because
Yeah.
it's not what they think they're looking at. Where else are you doing that?
Yeah.
Right? And is the aesthetic getting in the way? Either because you refuse it or because you accept it and don't have room for anything else. Like, what is that?
Yeah.
What does that look like? It's interesting. But at the end of the day, how you look is only how you look. It's
Right.
superficial. It doesn't really matter. It's a projection to the world of how you think of yourself.
Yeah.
That's for
I
sure.
right. I'm going to take one moment to not disagree with myself. All right. I only mentioned we paused because my pause game is slow. Some of you might have noticed, but anyway, yeah. So, kind of not to contradict myself, but to kind of give a perspective so people understand what I'm not saying. You can dress and have the aesthetic you want if it helps you focus. That's not an issue for me as far as that goes. Like, I don't want to like people think like, oh, you can't, oh my God, Dan there doesn't want you to have nose rings and tattoos. No, no, you can have them. If that gets you into your
You.
magical role, that's fine. Like, I'm not trying to stop you like from that kind of thing. And I don't want people to think like I have all these hard rules that you have to follow. It's like, no, it's be you. But just know the difference between being you and thinking you have to be that way.
Yeah, it's how you look, and if that's how
Right.
you like to look, that's cool.
Mhm.
But it's not required.
Right.
That's essentially it. And sometimes I think it's kind of fun to not look the way people expect.
Yes.
Yeah, I've been doing that my entire life. People get totally surprised and they're like, "Oh, I wasn't expecting that."
Mhm.
And that's kind of that gives me amusement, so I guess that shows up. But yeah, it can be fun. It can be fun. But having said You don't have to go for the aesthetic. I just
Yeah,
sent you a photo of some stuff I'm going to be selling at a local
yeah,
event.
to try. Yeah,
And there's
those are pretty cool.
it is cool. It's
Yeah,
totally an aesthetic. It absolutely is, but it's one that gives me immense pleasure and I find it amusing. So I'm hoping other people around here do. It can also be an interesting way to find others who may be practicing magic or at least
hmm
open to it.
right.
Um, it's a way of signaling other people,
Yeah,
right?
no, that makes,
So it's not a bad thing. It's just yeah, it's a question of how deep does it go?
yeah. And does it become a crutch? And does it limit you?
It's the limitation that concerns me is
That's
just,
right. That's what we're
does
trying to
it?
get you not to do, is not limit yourself by an aesthetic or by
Yeah.
ideas. Someone said it has to be this way. It's like, well, no, it doesn't. I'll say once again, if the power of Pikachu compels you, the power of Pikachu compels you.
The thing
It
is,
doesn't
there's
matter.
no rules, right? There's
Right.
no rule book. And I can't emphasize that one enough because we're taught from young that there's rules for everything and there's a rule book for everything and there's right and wrong and laws and what have you. Who decided right and
Mm,
wrong? Who gets to call that? Because, my experience in different countries tells me that right and wrong is not a universally agreed upon concept.
no.
It changes. And some countries will accept behaviors that others don't. But and they won't accept some things. There's a shift in
Hmm.
what's okay and what isn't. And it suits the environment that you're in. It suits the people in that environment. And when they go to other countries, there's a bit of a jarring um, as you learn that, oh, other people don't think this way. This
Right.
isn't normal. This isn't the rule. Holy smokes. Now the ideal is that you adapt to your environment
Right.
and for as long as you're there. It doesn't mean you lose yourself, it means you adapt to the environment.
Right.
The
Well, and
problem
there's,
is when you try and adapt the environment to you, as we're seeing
yeah.
in various countries right now, that is not a happy event when people come in and try to change it to what they came from. That's
Well,
not what that's about.
that's what I was going to say, right? Because culture is born from your environment.
Yeah.
Because everything you learn to do, the clothes and all that stuff, usually tends to reflect the kind of environment you live in. They're your protections, your whatever, your adaptations to the environment you're in. So if you come in from another place and you try to impose a different way of doing things, and it's especially dangerous for the situation, for the environment you're in, like, it's not a good
Yeah.
idea.
Yeah. It's unfortunate that people are doing that right
Mm,
now, and some countries are their culture is suffering because of it.
yeah,
And I see that, and it's kind of sad. But if you go to a country and you adapt to the environment you're in, it's so much easier, but also you learn more
yeah,
because you're not setting yourself apart in a way that says, I don't want to learn what you know.
right.
And I don't think that's a very good approach if you want the full experience of being on this planet.
Hmm.
So, yeah. But again, as with so many things at the moment, that's been royally cocked up, and we now have countries that are morphing into what the incoming are changing it to. And I'm not actually talking about the US right now, because the US has such a melting pot of people. The damage was done when the place was first invaded, right? The Pilgrims got here, they did the damage. Um, Everybody that's come since, there's kind of like it's more like a kaleidoscope than one colored soup, right? There's all these different facets in there, and that's not what I'm talking about because those individual groups come in and they don't try and change everybody else to their group.
Right.
It's sort of smaller countries like you have in Europe and in the UK, where particularly where I'm from. Like I look at what has become of that country and I am horrified. I would not go there right now. There's nothing would induce me to go there. Even my passport's out of date and I'm not going to renew it. It's just, it doesn't matter. I wouldn't go. So because it has become something it isn't. It's become something it was not. And that's problematic. Because you know when that veil falls and it's on
Yeah.
its way now, that's going to be ugly. That's going to be really unpleasant because we've made it something unnatural.
Well, and that's kind of the thing, right? It's one thing to make people comfortable. It's one thing to be open and accepting. It's another thing to go against what's necessary for your space, you know?
Yeah. And you know, I mean, I've been in Egypt, for example. Um, I had the absolute delight of doing a Nile River cruise.
Right.
Absolutely astounding. Like if you can put it on your bucket list and do it once in your life,
Mm,
it's an epic thing to do.
mm,
And there were a bunch of Russian tourists
mm,
on the same boat. Very cool. It was all absolutely fine. But what didn't go so well was this was a very hot part
mm,
of the year. I like to travel out of tourist season
right.
ideally because there's less tourists for a start off. And they had the same thought. Um, so it was like 40 degrees Celsius and it was just stupid hot. Now, if
Mm,
you've got an umbrella up keeping the sun off and you're properly clothed and you're
mm,
drinking tons of water, you're okay. Like we knew how to handle it, so we were
mm,
okay. But seeing Russian girls in like short shorts
mm,
and spaghetti straps in Egypt,
mm,
not only is it very much not the culture there,
mm.
but it's very much you are like a roasted pig on a spit
Yeah.
because that sun is unforgiving. And
Right.
you know, these people, the guys too, who were shirtless and stuff, they were
Mm,
turning into lobsters. Like they were just
yeah.
bright red. It was not pleasant. If they could have not insisted on doing things their way and maybe been a little more adaptive to the environment, they might
Right.
not have fried themselves quite so thoroughly. But I think there was a lot of pain involved
Well, yeah.
in this degree of sunburn.
That's what I
And
was gonna say. Go ahead.
yeah, it's
Go.
it's that stubbornness that's like, I'm gonna make everybody
Yeah.
accept what I do and my way, and don't bring that to your magic. Don't bring
Yeah.
that to a hot country. Just don't. It doesn't go well.
Right. Like you should be prepared to learn. And if actually something you do bring from your culture actually will enrich the area, that's different. But typically that environment is adapted. Like there might be things you may not have noticed. Like what was I going to think, right? Like Canada has like three different cold zones, right? There's Arctic, subarctic, temperate, whatever, and all those three uh, techniques may not cross each other very
Uh-huh.
well. So so you take what is learned in that environment because it gets harder to do as cultures grow because you have influences from the outside, right? So you get these weird things, and you think it's the inherent culture of that place, but it's not. It's just people come from outside and they've been there for so long that they've changed what's happening in that area.
And if it fits, it's okay.
Yeah.
It's when it doesn't that it's problematic. And with magic, like we've
Mm,
said before, gurus are done.
mm,
Like the
yeah,
big gurus, they're falling. Most of them seem to be in the Epstein files, or at least associated with people who are. There's a lot of problems around that. That said, it doesn't mean you cannot have somebody who knows more about the craft than you do
right,
imparting their knowledge to you.
right.
You not only can, but ideally, yeah, find people who know more than you. I do. I love to find
Mm,
people who know more than me. Yes, please, because I want to learn. Doesn't mean I'm going to follow them.
right.
It means I'm going to learn and I'm going to use discernment and I'm going to use my understanding of how things come through to me and
Yeah,
what works for me and what doesn't. So it's very different from the era that or we're in the process of painfully emerging from,
right.
where you take their word for it and, do their thing.
Mm,
No, but you can and should learn from others. That's, again, it's that don't throw the baby out with the bathwater,
yeah,
right? Just because this thing doesn't work or it's gone bad, or at least you see that it's not good, doesn't mean everything associated with it has to go away.
right.
I've seen a lot of questions about, well, I love Deepak Chopra and I've been following him for
Mm,
years. And so this means now that I have to burn all the books and get rid of
mm,
everything that I ever learned from him. Well, okay, but it's a little extreme,
mm,
that is the baby with the bathwater. The guy's seriously a douche, given the stuff
mm.
that he's been acknowledged for in the Epstein files, but he also had some good information to impart.
Right.
So take the stuff that you know that works for you and condemn the rest,
Yeah.
right? Like, no, you can take good parts. I don't think anybody is fully, absolutely, inherently evil all the way around. There is a
Right.
president right now who's challenging that. I can't find anything good there. But for example, even Hitler, right?
Mm, yes.
Let's go hog wild on this one. I had a relative from the same village as him in Austria, and she was around at the same time as him.
Mm,
And as he was rising to power, the people in his village were suffering from poverty and like the worst winter ever. And in fact, I call her my aunt, but she was a bit further
right.
than that in relation. She had frostbite of her toes,
Mm,
and was suffering from that. He sent a whole load of medical supplies and food to that village. So to them, he
right.
was this amazing guy who helped them. She could not understand why people were so, upset about the guy. Now, bearing in mind who's saying this right now, this is
Yeah.
me. You know how I feel
Right.
about anti-Semitism,
Hmm.
right? But her perspective in a microcosm in that village was, but this guy's great. He bought us meds and
Yeah.
food and all the things we needed. And in her life experience at that time, yes, she got to understand a whole lot of other things later, but at that moment,
Right.
he was not wholly evil.
Hmm. Which again is a good reminder of, no, I lost it. No, not everything is black and white. Not everything is the same. Like you do have to watch for manipulations and stuff like that, but it's always a weird dynamic.
There's a lot there, right? There's
Yeah.
stuff that you don't see. I
Hmm.
mean, do I think, oh well, he wasn't such a bad guy? No, it was absolutely,
Mm.
you know,
Right.
no, come on. I'm wholly against any kind of
Oh,
anti-Semitism, let
yeah.
alone the final solution. But
Right.
even there was something.
Yes.
Somebody somewhere thought he was a good guy
Right.
for good reasons,
Hmm.
right?
Yes. It was a
Like
good
that.
reason. Yeah. Well, that's the thing,
So,
right? Like, there's a lot of directions we can go in. I'm going to go in one magic related. I've probably mentioned this before. So, voodoo. What
oh
at the
yeah,
time, because this was like probably 20, 25 years ago, maybe even more than I watched this documentary, and the woman wanted to now elevate her voodoo practice. She had one major issue. Person she had to go see to learn from, their family made a killing in the slave trade.
right.
And just so you know, he was a black African selling other Africans. Because if you actually understand the slave trade, it wasn't like Europeans
Uh-huh.
before vaccination. Europeans couldn't go into the heart of Africa and just grab people willy nilly without dying from disease. So there had to be an intermediary, and it was already
Oh,
a
and
practice. There's already a slave trade at the time in Africa, and
it's
this
still
guy,
happening there.
right, and it's still happening. But this guy happened to be his family were the wealthiest slave traders, but he's also
Mhm.
happens to be one of the highest ranking voodoo practitioners in the world. So she had to kind of decide how she wanted to go forward with this.
And that's such an interesting dilemma. And yeah, like what a gift to be given
Hmm.
such an opportunity, right?
Right,
To make a decision. How are you going
right,
to go with that? And the key is why, right? Are you being righteous in your
right,
decision making? In which case, screw you. Or are you balancing the pros and the cons? How do you put that together, right? Like I've mentioned to you before that there's
mm,
someone that I do coaching work with
yes,
who is Baptist, and rampantly so, right? I had no problem in
Mm,
figuring out how I was going to deal with that.
mm,
I simply do not interact with that person on a religious level.
right.
And to the best of my knowledge, no harm
Mm,
other than in what's inherent in the religion. There's no active intent to harm coming from
right.
there. So I don't have to do anything about it,
Right.
is how I'm feeling about that. And so I simply don't engage that aspect of that person.
Right.
It's not for me to tell them they're right or they're wrong. I don't have to engage with it at all. So there's my decision making for that. Now, when you've got something a lot bigger with head of the chain in voodoo, head
Right.
of the chain in slave trade,
Yeah.
woo,
Yeah.
that's that's a whole lot. So how do
And
you
he,
perceive your role there?
right, the way she described it to give you an idea of how big it was, this was like going to see the Pope.
Uh-huh.
Like if you're Catholic and you're going to the Pope, that's pretty much as far as you can go or as high as you can get. And that was the
Uh-huh.
equivalent for voodoo. So it was like you
And
had a big decision to make for sure.
as soon as we're
Mm,
talking about Catholics, the
mm,
church isn't exactly pristine, is it?
no.
So the dilemma is still there, right? You go to the top of the tree, chances are it's a pretty rotten fruit. So somewhere along the lines,
Yeah. Well,
do you
by the
do that? Do you go there even knowing that?
yeah, yeah.
I
It's
don't know. That is such an individual choice. If you see it as, well, my magic is going to be
mm,
unfulfilled. My magic is going to be limited if I don't. That's an awfully strong pull.
yeah,
So how do you then reconcile the rest? Big questions. Big
yeah,
questions, and I ain't offering any answers there. That's individual.
yeah.
It's a good one though. It's like it's one of those puzzles that, you can present it and
Mm,
who's to say what's the right answer? There's only the answer that you would do.
right.
And if you really would do it.
Hmm.
Because we're often full of, well, if I saw that, I'd take action.
Yeah,
No, chances are you wouldn't. Bystander effect says that no, you wouldn't.
right,
So what happens if you're faced with that and then you discover that that's not actually what you do? Now you have to
right.
revisit who are you?
Yeah.
So I
Well, that
guess the whole conversation here, what we're going around with
mm,
is the the mirror, the illusion,
yeah,
the well, who's behind the mask, who's behind the facade,
right.
yours and theirs.
Yep.
And putting your magic where it flows and not where it
Mm,
doesn't.
right. Now we are approaching, well, we're in the beginning of a magical period where, fortunately, we're reverting back to a primordial form of magic where it's literally your own connection and you can do whatever the hell you want to do as long as it flows with you. So there is
And
that.
and and it's received however it's sent
Right.
out, right? So that's why for so many episodes we've said
Mm,
at some point or other, and I'm about to say
mm,
it now, check your intent. Make
yep.
sure that what you're putting out is what you want out there.
Yep.
It's kind of like the internet, spirit is forever.
Hmm.
It's not going away, and you can't delete it.
Right.
You put it out there, it's out there. So, be sure you want to do what you're doing.
Hmm.
But don't shy away either. There's that
No.
happy space of have enough gumption to do it and have the courage of your convictions, quite
Yep.
literally. Well, how does it land for you? Go do that thing.
Yeah. Because that conviction is how you strengthen your magic.
Mhm.
So it behooves you to have that conviction.
You have to have the confidence of what you're doing, what you're trying, what you're working on. Even if you don't know all the answers, you're not going to know all the
No.
answers, but even if you don't know the answers you'd like to know, are you in the right direction? Meaning the
Mm,
one that you want?
right.
And if so, go for it. Do it. You can't fly a hang glider if you stay on the edge of the cliff, you got to go for it.
That's right.
Go do that thing. And I can tell
About
you, it's
the
quite a
yeah,
blast.
yeah, yeah. So as far as I know and understand, that's it. We're done. This
Yep,
episode has said what it needs to say.
that's what I got.
Spirit world feels a little less shaky. Still there because it's still happening. This episode still has to go up. People still have to hear it. Other people still have to share a similar message.
Hmm.
But
We
yeah,
would love feedback. Like,
yeah,
tell us what, if your opinions are not pleasant, then at least be kind with them, but
right,
be honest. And if they're pleasant, then also be kind with them, but and
right,
be honest, but
right.
give us your feedback. That'd be very interesting to hear. I love getting feedback on things
Mm,
because that's how you learn what you want to do next time.
yeah,
May or may not change, got a full disclosure, just
right,
because you offer something doesn't mean it's going to be accepted, but it's cool to know.
yeah. All right. So once again, I'm Daniel Dubois.
I'm Michaela Gaffinstone.
Till next time.
À la prochaine.